A couple weeks back, we recorded a podcast, and today I have the special designation of having my first guest on Talk Shop. And that's funny because he's technically my second guest as well, because we recorded this podcast a couple weeks ago. Well, not this exact podcast, but similar podcast. And we're actually going to take some of the conversation from that podcast and talk about it in today's podcast. But it is fun to me that we have our first guest. Now, this is several weeks ago, we had our first guest, and he was on location. We were standing next to each other. That was before this COVID surge, and now we are having a Zoom podcast, which for everyone at home, this may trigger some emotions, right? Because we're all tired of Zoom. We're tired of this. So this podcast is Zoom, but hopefully as a passive participant, this feels more like a podcast for you as well. The subject of today's podcast does talk about that a little bit. We take that little thing that we all hate talking about, COVID, and we're going to discuss it a little bit. So the topic is COVID, how we are all navigating it in business, specifically in the advertising and marketing industry. Hey everybody, I'm Luke Miller, host of Talk Shop, CEO of Moment, janitor, coffee maker, Zoom technician. The list goes on, it always does, but key for me is that we are always all a part of making this company work together. Today, I'd like to invite in Cam King. Cam, how are you today?
Hey, Luke. I always love your intros, and the cadence of that was impeccable. So, as always, great to be here. I know we did this a couple weeks where we talked about new business, et cetera. And I think you talk a lot about great things on your podcast. And much like the conversation that we had this morning, we're here to talk about new business, how brands can adapt, how to pivot. We're sitting here, it's 1:17 in the afternoon here Mountain Time in Denver, and late November, almost Thanksgiving. And man, we are just seeing a ton of crazy stuff out there, aren't we? It's wild.
I'm tired of using the phrase, but I say it quite often. It's a weird time to be alive, right? It is a weird time to be in business. It is a weird time to be a parent. It is a weird time to be a business owner. It's a weird time to be a human being on planet Earth, right? With everything that's been going on. We now have, since March of 2020, we're about to enter December. So that makes it, 9-ish months. And I think, and that's part of the conversation I want to have with you today, Cam, which, by the way, Cam King is an advertising marketing industry veteran. He's been around the block, worked for some incredible companies, incredible agencies, worked with various brands in different capacities, and he has a wealth of knowledge to share. But his specialty is business development. Would that be right to say, Cam?
Yeah, totally.
And, I think there are people that strive in business operations. There are people that strive in business development. There are people that strive in various components of business. I think it's very rare to find somebody that can wear every glove. But Cam is an absolute expert in this field. And so he's been helping out Moment for the last few months, been a part of the team, been an integral part of the team. We've really enjoyed having him. And so as part of that, Cam, that's what I really wanted to talk about is to kick this off is what's different? What's different about having these conversations, forging these relationships right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point in 2020, we're all a little bit war torn, right? I don't want to keep harping on the fact that COVID's still around and changes every single week in every single city across the country, because that's knowledge that everybody knows and is dealing with, right? So regardless of whether you're a human being, a parent, or a business owner, regardless of whether you're a brand or an agency or a third-party vendor, like we're all dealing with different aspects of the same thing. And business development, to me, I love business development because it's a human relationship game all the time, right? It's about who you know. It's also about luck and timing, okay? And it's always been that way. It's also about consistent effort over time. Okay. You can't hire someone just because they have their network. You can't hire someone just because they have a cool Rolodex or they dress really nice or dress really fancy. Business development is about being able to be in the trenches day in and day out and doing what needs to be done, regardless of whether things are good or bad or ugly. Okay. And we spoke about this earlier this morning, but right now things are a little ugly on the brand side, especially in experiential marketing. And I see on LinkedIn, people are putting their open to work signs on their profile photos. Agencies are shutting down. People are writing these really happy-go-lucky positive articles about experiential is going to make a comeback and it's going to be better than ever. And we're right around the corner and we just got to hold on for a little longer. And they're right, but they're also wrong, right? Regardless of where experiential marketing is at or marketing and advertising in general, right now you have to be developing relationships. And you have to be opening two-way streets and you have to be deepening those relationships. Not only do you have to be empathetic, but you also have to be willing to take a chance. And then you have to be smart and calculated as well. And business development requires all the facets of all of these things day in and day out, right? It's not complicated. It's very simple, but it's also very challenging and unprecedented because we've never dealt with this in this industry. Even when the economy collapsed in 2008 to 2011, it was a very different game back then than it is right now. So
it sounds to me that largely on the whole, while everything's different, nothing's really changed, right? It's still the same approach. It's about forging relationships, about having conversations. It's maybe about, and you alluded to this, the conversation we had earlier. It's part of the reason we're recording this podcast today is because we had a really good conversation earlier and kind of wanted to translate that over to this podcast. So I think we're going to revisit a couple of those subjects here. But what I'm hearing from you is that while COVID has definitely thrown a wrench in the cog of this machine, in large part, it's still very similar.
Yeah, I'm actually going to pull from some of the things that you said in that conversation. And you told me once that anybody left with a marketing job or an advertising job or a brand manager job or a CMO job, anything related to any of those things, they still have a job to do with 2020. They still have a budget to spend. They still have to plan for the next 4 to 6 months out, right? They still have to plan for 2021. And regardless of whether their teams have been slashed by 80% and their budgets have been slashed by 90%, whatever those numbers are for whatever companies that are out there, if you're still working and you're still working from home from that brand, you still have a job to do at the end of the day. And I am deeply curious as to what these people that are working for these brands, what are you doing on a daily basis besides applying for new jobs? Because I'm going to call you out right now. Okay. If you're working for a brand, if you're working for Ball Aerospace, if you're working for Target on the brand side, if you're working for Hasbro, if you're working for Marvel, if you're working for any cool company, Netflix, YouTube, any tech company that has ever done experiential marketing or these types of campaigns, and it's your job to either do events or in some type of marketing or media buying opportunity or environment design, working for Patagonia, I don't care. You still have a job to do and you know this. So how are you leveraging that stuff inside? And I feel like a lot of teams that I've seen and conversations that I've had, brands like Camelback, brands like Herschel, they're trying to build these internal agency teams. And in the past couple hours, I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about on this podcast. When a brand decides to create an internal agency team to try to handle it internally, which I've heard over and over and over again, you're lying to us, right? You're lying to us and you're lying to yourselves because you can't stir the jar of peanut butter from the inside. Okay. Right. That's the metaphor that came to my mind. And I was like, oh, that's gold. But literally when brands try to have internal creative teams, you're too homogenized from the inside in order to be able to store creativity. And that is why brands must work with outside agencies to develop these creative relationships and creative opportunities, right? Yeah. We're working right now with a really cool energy company here in the Midwest that wants to do a really cool experiential campaign. I guarantee if that communication from the onset had been, hey, we're going to try to figure this out and do this internally, it wouldn't be as creative and as out of the box as some of the things that you came up with, Luke.
And that's funny you mentioned that because they did say that. And I've heard it a million times in my career. We handle that internally, or we're going to start doing that internally, or we've always done that internally. Great. Okay. I think companies feel like they can save money when they do that, when in the grand scheme of things, they're actually losing money and more critically losing perspective, right? I even encourage it with our current clients. Don't always work with us. Now, we want you to work with us as much as you possibly want to and can, but once in a while, ask another agency for perspective, for ideas. See if their thinking is completely different. See if it flips it on its head and puts you in a position that you didn't even realize existed. I see so many companies work with the same agency year after year after year after year after year, and it's just stale. A perfect example is I continue to see Lincoln Motor Company do these ride and drives, these activations across the country at kind of what they would consider bougie gyms, you know, your Equinoxes, your Colorado athletic clubs. And they've been doing the same thing for 10 years. It's like, is this still selling cars? Or is Matthew McConaughey doing better for you? Like, what's working? And to me, I just look at them and go, wow, stale. So it's funny that you mentioned these internal teams as what I would say, and probably what you're hearing as well, is largely a cost-saving maneuver. Is that right?
Over the time, we've seen a lot of big agencies want to work with these big brands, and it tends to get comfortable for them, right? Because they can package everything in, all the paperwork's done, they know all the same people. And much like
smiley face tattoo on your left butt cheek, right?
Right. And I think a lot of people tend to get comfortable, right? Whether it's personal relationships or business relationships, people want comfort. They want the same thing. But what happens when things stay the same is they also get really stagnant. Okay. And what did 2020 do to everybody, right? It took the container, it took the whole globe and it shook it really hard like a snow globe. And now everything's kind of still settling or flying around. And that's something that we need to keep in mind, is that the way that we were all doing things pre-COVID, pre-2020 it was all very comfortable. Our economy was growing. Everything was good. Everyone was happy. Everyone was getting fat and lazy. And now guess what? We got sucker punched in the face week in and week out since March 12th or whenever this thing officially hit us, right? So, excuse me, classic. But anyways, what I'm saying is that brands need to shake things up starting right now. Okay. Like, now's the time to be developing these strategic relationships. Who haven't you worked with? Who don't you know? Take a call, take a conversation. Nothing, as we spoke about on our call earlier, nothing really gets done from Thanksgiving to December.
Oh,
false. Yeah. This year, it's got to change, right? Stop being lazy, pick up the phone, answer emails, set time aside to take 15 to 20 minutes to build new connections week in and week out, because ultimately you are your network. Okay. Yeah. I've told friends this, I've told contacts and relationships and whoever. You are your own network at the end of the day, right? Don't automate your LinkedIn and try to get thousands of new connections, right, with something and sending template messages. That doesn't matter. But if you can send a genuine, authentic message to a brand or to an agency or to someone that you don't know, maybe a mentor, someone that you want to really have in your network, create and cultivate that connection now. And that is so important for brands, for people, for agencies to start doing right now, because when this stuff does open up, guess what? Then you're going to be able to capitalize on those things. So now is the time, in my opinion.
I love that. I mean, I think, you know, I'm hearing you, and I want to kind of reiterate what you're saying, but maybe even add a couple points to it, in that you're absolutely right that now is the time, right? Everyone's living in this world of uncertainty. What's happening next? When will this all clear up? What should we do, right? The bottom line is your customer is still out there, right? And if you've been ignoring them for 9 months now, it's time to start thinking about how to stop ignoring them. If you've pivoted or done some different things, whether it's digital heavy or whatever it may be, it's time to start thinking about how we can involve them again. You know, and I think you and I were talking about it earlier. It's like, hey, if we have to plan a COVID safe event and it's for June, so be it, right? If COVID goes away by June, fantastic. We drop that portion of the event and we push those cost savings onto something else for your customer. Hopefully that's the case, but it doesn't mean we should stop planning and preparing. And to your point about brands branching out, forging relationships, there's nothing more true than that. You've got agencies that have been dying left and right. You've got a lot of the bigger mouths still getting fed. And again, continuing to do some of that stale work. I think it's important for brands to branch out, to reach out to smaller, medium-sized agencies, say, hey, can we just talk? That's where we'd like to sit. Hey, we'd like to just talk with you. I don't necessarily have to sell you on anything. You don't have to buy any of our services. I just want to talk to you. I want to get to know you. What are your hopes, your wishes, your needs from a job perspective, from a brand perspective? And then we can tell you where we're at. And then if in 6 months we're a good fit, maybe you remember this conversation that we had and you call us up. That's what we hope for. So it's true, Cam, you're right. Pick up the phone. Reach out to some people. Have some conversations during this historically dead period. You've got to make an effort to widen your web, right? I think that is so very important. And as the snow globe analogy you made is so perfect for this, because yes, we did shake up the world. And as the dust settles, the snow falls. I think it's important that people kind of look outside of their snow globe, right? Because another analogy of a snow globe is this little quaint, little perfect village, right? But there's so much beyond the walls of that snow globe that it's worth reaching out to some smaller, medium-sized agencies that do different things. Have conversations. We are historically an experience agency, but experience is just a vessel for content. I think every agency at the end of the day is a content manufacturer, right? Whether it's a print ad, whether it's an experiential event, a digital campaign, all we're doing is making content for your brand that's attractive to your customer. So let's talk about different ways we can continue doing that. You don't have to have a 3,000 person party to make a good event. You have to have an experience. You have to have something that resonates with your customer. And it all starts with a phone call or an email or an IM to say, hey, what's up? I'm here. You're there. Let's talk. Let's get to know each other. We're both humans. And it's funny because I think this will probably be the subject of my next podcast, Cam. We've talked about it, is turning a person from a computer into a person, right? When we send emails, when we talk to them on LinkedIn, until you've shook somebody's hand, until you've had a face-to-face interaction, they're still just a computer to you. So I think if you're a brand, don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Don't be afraid to have a conversation.
No, dude, I totally agree. And I'm surprised video mail isn't a thing yet in 2020. So if you want $1 million idea, feel free to take that and make it happen. But my last comments, I want to hone in on one word that you said there, right? And that's effort. Okay. We're seeing a lot of brands lose money, lose budgets. We're seeing a lot of agencies shut down, unfortunately, which is very scary. And one of my biggest gripes in the marketing and advertising industry, especially being a new business, when I was younger, I was like a bull in a china shop. And then I kind of turned into like a German Shepherd type hunter, right? Where I was a little smarter in my approaches for what I wanted to go after. And I have always come from a background of like, put in the hard work. Put in the hard work consistently, you will see the results. Your hard work, your effort, as you said, will dictate the results of the outcome or the scenario that you're going through. Okay. And in 2020, in a lot of my previous new business positions, I was always putting in as much effort as possible. And in some agencies, I've noticed there's this analogy about, you have hunters on the team and then you have farmers. And the farmers were always the account people. They just wanted to maintain the status quo of the account and keep it happy and not too much. And then there was people that were hunters that were always hungry. They were always out hunting new leads, new business, new relationships, new contacts, new events to go to, et cetera. And in 2020, I have seen a lot of people really just kind of throw in the shovel at some point. Just go, I'm done. I'm going to pack it up. I'm just going to shut it down. I'm sad. I'm tired. I have too much anxiety. And for sure, we're all feeling that. And I'm trying to be empathetic to it. But I think now is really the time to dig deep and continue putting in that effort. Whether you're a brand, you're an agency, you're a person. I don't want to say that you should take every email or every phone call that you get, because at some point you can be spinning your wheels and that is counterproductive. You have to be protective of your time. But now is the time to dig deep. Now is the time to work harder, because what you do in this valley of life that we're all in 2020 is going to determine how you're going to feel on a peak once we're finally out of this. Okay. So your effort is going to dictate how you feel later in the game. And later in the game is whenever COVID ends or whenever your industry gets back up. And you and I both talked about this. We think it's going to be next summer. But at this point, who the hell knows? So don't give up. Stay true to the course. Keep putting in the work. Keep making connections. Try to introduce other people to other people and just build bridges right now. That's it. That's all people got to do.
And that goes for both sides of the industry, right? Whether you're an agency or a brand. I think it's true. Brands probably get inundated by agencies saying, hey, hire us, right? If you're a brand, you can't pick up every phone call. You can't respond to every email. You can't respond to every LinkedIn message, right? It's just not possible. But do yourself a favor. Carve out 5 to 10 minutes a week to just say, hey, I'm going to check out 2 or 3 of the agencies that have reached out to us. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to figure out who they are. And then put a little effort, as you said, just a few minutes, just a couple minutes of your time to figure out if they work, if they jibe with you and your brand, right? Because that network, the wider it is, the better it's going to be, the better your results. So I think what I'm hearing out of everything here is COVID has certainly changed things because it's made things weirder and harder and different. And a lot of people, as you say, Cam, kind of shut it down when things get hard. When the pressure gets put on you, a lot of people shut down. COVID is pressure. But doesn't mean we should stop making an effort. It's still a relationship game. It's still building networks. It's still figuring out how different agencies and entities can be mutually beneficial for each other, right? We talked about internal teams. Bad idea. You're going to save money hiring an agency, I promise you. They have more expertise. They have better resources than you will ever get with your $30,000 straight out of college event team, right? Hire that position. But don't give up because COVID is staring you down, right? Be willing to have conversations. Be willing to pick up the phone and be ready for the other side, whatever it is. Whether this vaccine they're all talking about works, whether it's another year that we have to deal with this. Your customer is still out there. Your customer still wants to be felt like that their brands that they love care about them and are seeing them and are hearing them. That's important. So continue to reach out, to branch out, to have conversations. Because at the end of the day, it is no different than it's ever been. It's just a matter of who's willing to stand up in the face of this, be strong, and push forward. Is that right?
Couldn't have said it better myself, Luke. That was spot on.
Well, I really do believe it. I think we've seen a lot of it, especially in the last couple of months. Like, I don't know. I don't have any money. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. Look, we hear that a lot. We get it. We're in the same boat. As an agency, hearing that from 20 different people makes us go, shoot, right? But it's our job to help you come up with ideas. It's our job to help you get out of this mud. It's our job as agencies to think beyond the bubble that you currently have, which includes COVID. Call on us. And you don't have to hire us. We will listen to you. We will talk with you. If that's all you need, we're here for you. Because I'd rather have a 4-hour conversation with somebody that never turns into business, if it's some good ideas, if it's some banter, if it's productive, than to go sit in my office and have no conversations at all. We're an agency. We thrive on coming up with creative. We thrive on interactions with new brands and new challenges. We thrive on that. Don't go radio silent, brands. We know you have money different places. If you want to tuck some money away that's from 2020, just park it for a minute. We'll listen to you. If you're worried about 2021, let's talk about it. Just chat with us. That's all we ask for.
Variety is the spice of life. So that's why agencies will always be better than internal creative teams with 23-year-old junior art directors and event planners, as you said. So spot on, Luke, as always.
Hey, Cam, it was a pleasure talking with you. It always is. It's a lot of fun having you on the team lately. I certainly hope that this is just the beginning of a long, long road for us. Don't forget to call on your agencies during these times of stress, these times of trouble. COVID, whether it is or isn't, doesn't matter. You still have to sell your product. You still have to reach your consumer. And we're here to help you do that. Thanks for joining me, Cam. That's it. That's the podcast. Have a good one. We'll see you on the next one.